let's talk about what's happening in the telecommunications sector. About a week ago, or we could say days ago, the Nigeria Communications Commission (NCC) approved a long-standing request of telcos, which is to increase tariff. They approved it by giving the approval that telcos could now implement a 50% tariff hike. Telcos had earlier demanded for a 100% increase because, according to them, the operating cost was really heavy on them, and so to ensure sustainability of the sector, there had to be a tariff increase. Sometime in 2024, the CEO of one of the big players in the telecom industry in Nigeria had said it was either a tariff increase or the business would fold. And so, NCC has given to the telco operators what they had demanded. So far, the NLC, Nigeria Labour Congress, had protested against that approval, saying that they would boycott telecom services in the country. They are not alone in this. The Nigerian National Association of Telecom Subscribers, NATCOMS, has also said they will take legal action against NCC for that 50% approval given to telcos. What is the position of NATCOMS? Why have they arrived at that decision? We will find out as we talk with the national president of National Association of Telecom Subscribers, Mr. Adeolu Ogunbanjo. He joins us virtually. Good morning. Welcome to the Front Burners.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you.
We're glad you could find time. Now, looking at the issues here, I had given a background of the issues, and the telco operators, telcos have given their reason for demanding for tariff increase. Against this backdrop, what is the reason behind the position of NATCOM towards the 50% tariff hike approval by the NCC?
Thank you very much. We must acknowledge the fact that since May 29, 2023, subsidy is gone. Dollarization we have to embrace. The electricity band tariff hike has been here, and passport price hike. Now, in addition to that, we are now looking at telecoms for the last half of 2024. Uncle Bismarck Rewani of Financial Derivatives and one other organization, I've forgotten now, they had a survey of the telecom sector, and they did say that the telecom sector is in intensive care, meaning that it needs some attention. Beyond that, the telcos now came as well, the telecom companies, all of them came to say, they came back to the table and said, come, we may be service shedding. You know, what that means is maybe this area will be having signals today and you know, tomorrow another area and vice versa, which will not be good for telecom sector at all and for our various subscribers. So with all that, we now looked at the telecom sector and said, well, maybe something needs to be done. However, we believe that some other things could be responsible for, you know, this lack of funds. For instance, the banks owing the telecommunications industry through this USSD stuff. Yeah, and it runs into billions. Again, they are owing themselves, within themselves, they are owing themselves. That is to say that operator A may be owing operator B. Telco C may be owing telco C. So What I'm saying, in effect, is what we are looking at is if they pay within themselves, if they pay themselves whatever they are owing, and the banks also pay the several billions they are owing the telecom operators. After all, the moment you use a USSD, they charge you immediately. And it's annoying that the banks, the banking industry is now trying to stifle the telecoms industry. One industry shouldn't stifle the other one. So, in a nutshell, all these we now looked at and say, okay, if you recover your debt from the banks and you pay yourselves, you should be having enough funds. So you needn't, harass operators with any increase. Now, the minister, I think early this month, yes, now said he will be, the telcos now said they will be demanding for 100% increase. I mean, they're in business, yes. They may say they want 500% increase, no problem, but it is the regulator to now control them. So the minister now said, yes, he will grant some increases, but not 100%. Only to come last Monday to now look at a situation where they are now to grant, they have now approved 50% increase. It's a no-no for us. So because of that, and because of past engagements, we now looked at, okay, if all that is not enough, for instance, all the bankers to pay them, and then the intra-sectoral debts, then they can now go to the capital market to raise funds. Nigerians will invest. They could do initial public offerings and all that. Again, if that is now not enough, okay, since economic experts have said that the telecom sector is an ICU, is in intensive care, we may be looking at a 10%, the maximum of 10% tariff hike, which is very reasonable to us. And it will still be sustaining the industry. But a 50% tariff hike in the first swoop is a no-no for us.
Mr. You have rightly alluded to the fact that these organizations are businesses that need to be run and all of that. We used to hear, or we were hearing at some points, that it was going to be much more than 100%, because if you look at it broad strokes, they've come out to say that their operating costs and otherwise has run or is running or has run, beg your pardon, over 300%. And if you're going to hold on to that as it being anything, you also want to consider how they're going to level up. You've said a lot of things with regards to how they can raise funds, but reckon we've not seen this sort of, situation in a little over a decade now since we had increments and all of that. So we have 100% increment which they were asking for, which has been scaled down to 50%. Think about it this way. They intend to roll out further improvements infrastructure-wise. And if, based on what you have said, they cannot exactly lay their hands on the funds needed, don't you think it's, at this point in time, reasonable, I'll use that word quite deliberately, reasonable at 50%, considering how much running cost, expenditure there has been over the last decade since we had this sort of review?
Thank you very much.
Telcos are justifying
that they need to increase tariff. It's a sort of, the telecoms industry is a sort of, market oligopoly. All of them can decide and say, sorry, this is what we want, because, they have an association. Now, beyond that now is the fact that they may even ask for 500%. Who looks at
their books? They're now telling us that, yes, it's 300. Their running cost is now 300% more. Yes. Or I mean, who wants to look at their books except themselves? And let me also tell you that for us, there isn't anything like basically what you are looking at, for instance, is a telecom company will come and tell you, sorry, I want to make X amount my tariff. However, nobody has the right to make excessive profit, but they can. You can buy anything at 1 naira and say we are selling at 10,000 naira. That is excessive profit. But exploitative profit is what we are looking at. So for NATCOMS, we are saying that a 10% increase, and the other options we have said, okay, why are banks not paying them? Why are they not, paying themselves? With that, I must tell you that it's a situation where they need to at least look at this 10%, work on that, raise funds, and all that. So that is what we are saying.
Ogunbanjo, it's nice that you have spoken to some of these issues that are raising concern for both NATCOM and the consumers out there. But also looking at it from the point of view of just going to the market to raise funds, also understanding that investors will want dividend at the end of the day. Will this kind of pricing be attractive to any investor? Having said to us this morning that the expert opinion that the telcos are in an intensive care and about to die, do you think that without reviewing these prices appropriately, that an investor will be willing to put money in that sector?
I'm telling you today, sir, understand that if they go public or they do initial public offerings, I'm telling you, sir, they will find investors. We want to invest in the telecom sector. So that aside, what about all the monies the banks are owing them? That is also another point. Then the intra-sectoral debts, that is within themselves, let them pay themselves so that at least they can have funds among themselves to run their business. So a situation where you are looking at they going public and Nigerians not buying it, I can assure you they will definitely invest. Nigerians are waiting to invest so that it will, because that's all we have. Let me also tell you, sir, the three basic needs are food, clothing, and shelter. The next one is communication. It is now a basic need. I'm telling you, sir. So it has to be.
I agree with you, Mr. Ogunbanjo, but also put into account what has happened to the economy in the last 13 years. And looking at the cost of basic infrastructure that, of course, this telco had to provide. Some of their masks, of course, they have to provide generator. Electricity today on Band A has drastically increased. Exchange rate is not friendly at all. And all these things are way far above 10%. How would they make profit?
To be very exact, sir, the last increase was in 2013. And they have been making profits until I think last year or something, there was no declaration of profit. All these profits they've been making over the years, they should plow it back. I quite agree that they're in business to make profit, but not excessive profit, not exploitative profit. So I must say, sir, that it is an industry that can never die. let them also understand the fact that it will be a serious burden. All those other factors. Yes, operational costs have increased and all that. We know. But let them at least try this 10% first. I mean, it will be too much. Cost of goods and services will rise again the moment 50% is granted. I can assure you, Nigerians will just harp on that and say, yes, I want to increase. And they will, and you know too. But we will want a 10% increase. Let me also tell you that we have engaged the Nigerian Communications Commission. We have actually pleaded with them. We have written a letter pleading to reverse from their 50% to 10%. That was on Friday. So we are waiting till tomorrow evening, and then to get back to us on because they need to let us know whether they have listened to our cries, subscribers' cries, and if not, then on Wednesday we will have to start the court processes.
All right, you've mentioned a number of issues. Let me respond quickly to some of them and also ask you my next question. When you talked about the part of the banks paying the telcos what they owe, you understand there's a deadline for that, else the banks will be disconnected. Now, if you're asking that the NCC or the telcos rescind the tariff hike from 50% to 10%, bearing in mind what goes on into the operating costs, do you think that that would, at the end of the day, yield a positive outcome, given what they need? The NCC had said the driver for the agreement or its approval for the 50% hike was infrastructure upgrade. Currently, Nigeria is running on 4G. There are some areas where we have the 5G network technology in operation. But if we look at even the 4G that is widespread, we still have a long way to go in terms of coverage. If we're asking for better services as subscribers, shouldn't we allow what would enable the operators to run?
Definitely. We need good quality service.
As subscribers, we want to of course, allow them to improve, their network service quality. However, that does not now mean they should now punish subscribers by this additional 50% tariff hike. It is a no-no, sir. I'm sorry. Whatever it is, try 10%. You can reschedule. Yes, I learned they're owing about 1.5 trillion or something. Yes, you can rejig these things. They are in business. Telecoms is here to stay. And I must tell you that once they try this 10% increase, plus the other options were given, the banks have paid up and all that. The intersectoral debts are paid. Plus, all this will take, the moment they now start to do this IPOs and capital market situations or go to the stock exchange, all that, what we're looking at is maybe another 2-3 months. And you will see that they will have funds to operate. And with that, they will definitely improve quality of service.
Okay, now let me ask, should the letter that your association has written to telcos, if it doesn't come back with a positive response, you head to the court, and you've listed a number of basic necessities, and from what you've listed, telecom services falls in number 4, meaning it is a necessity. So even when NLC said we're going to boycott telecom services, that seemed like it's not going to even work because it's not possible given the time and age that we live in. What will be your next line of action should all of this avenue to try to force the hand of the telcos to make a reversal in terms of the tariff? If it fails, what do you plan to do?
Thank you very much.
On NLC, we have stated our case that we won't want a situation where the telecom sector is messed up. I mean, the current government, they're trying to, bring in investors to Nigeria. And by the time you now start boycotting services as NLC seem to want to, direct, it will send wrong signals to investors. And these are businesses. And also, again, I must say that telecoms, the telecom sector is the best example Nigeria can always point to when you look at privatization. Other sectors have actually messed up, but the telecoms industry has been a perfect example any nation would be proud of, and it's been there since 2001. So for NLC, they should please underscore all these situations about protests. Let's handle it in a civil manner as it should be handled. Now, coming back to what you have said, we have appealed to them, though there was a meeting called by the NCC January 9 in Abuja, which they called all stakeholders. And what that meeting did, January 9, about us 2 weeks or so ago, what we did there was to ensure that we stated our various positions. NCC stated theirs, all the other stakeholders stated their positions. But for us, we also, told them directly that we will definitely, we want them to look at a 10% increase. So that happened January 9. And shockingly, by just a week ago, yes, last Monday, we now had about this 50% increase. So in a nutshell, we hope they will listen to the voice of the subscribers. I mean, we have written, that is the NCC, we have written to the NCC, and we hope that they will, hear the plea of the subscribers nationwide. But if that now does not happen, we have no other choice but to seek a legal redress, in the court of law.
Now, Mr. Ogunbanjo, you had, in some of your media comments or briefings, alluded to some positions that you were not carried along by the major stakeholders, as it were. Now, you just said that you were part of some meeting. Was this complaint before or after, that particular meeting, down to the recent one, before the 50% was agreed upon? That's the first question. Now, the second question is regarding what you had mentioned before that time, with regards to profit-making, or profit-taking, if you like, by these telcos. Interestingly, recently, a lot of them have been running at a loss. And that's, it's there on the record, as it were. So the talk about them having made profits over these years, perhaps that is true, but only in part. Now the question is, or the second question here is, now that NATCOMS is advocating for a 10% increment, let's for a second take a look at the economy broadly. You have the services sector. The average nano business or micro business has increased their fees or increased their cost, as it were, because of what they have to incur by way of keeping the lights on. That has applied to every aspect. Even the POS, the POS merchant is no longer taking a particular amount for their service charge. They have doubled it, or maybe half doubled it, as the case may be. Now, if you consider all of that, and then you're advocating for a 10% increment, what if, I'm just spitballing here, what if it happens? What if it is realized? And then months down the line, we start to see a much worse performance, if you like, than the already ailing connections we have, because we need connectivity for pretty much everything that we do. That we're speaking with you here and now is because of connectivity. So what if we have it worse? and then they have a good position to come out and say, listen, the reason you have this is because we did not achieve our aim at getting either 100% or getting the 50% which was agreed upon, that would at that point be germane for them to use as an excuse, don't you think, sir? So, let's talk about my first and my second question.
So the first one, please remind me.
Yes, the first one was your involvement, that's your organization's involvement with the roundtable meetings that happened much earlier when this conversation started. Now, I'm marrying that with some of your attributions or some of your allusions to the fact that NATCOMS wasn't particularly carried along. That's the first question.
Thank you. We obviously were carried along. Only January
9th. This month. We're still in January 2025. So January 9, and this agitation has been on since last year, remember? So that was maybe why NCC now thought it fit, let me call these stakeholders to a roundtable to Jojo. And then that was what we did. Every stakeholder stated their cases, and no decision was reached. Or it was only last Monday, but although we've had the Honorable Minister, like I said earlier, saying that, yes, he will not grant a 100% increase as demanded by the operators, but that there will be an increase. So, and that was all, So, yes, we were carried along, but we just stated our cases, on January 9, both the NCC government and other stakeholders, they were there. But January, I mean, what was a week ago, which is 7 days ago, now said that they will approve 50%, which was a shock to a number of us. So we were carried along, yes, but that to the extent that we stated, all stakeholders stated whatever their position was. So that was it. The second one, sorry, remind me, sir.
The second one is, I asked it quite directly. I'm saying, I'm asking, with this 10%, this figure rather that you're pushing, that NATCOMS is pushing, and of course the NLC, as the case may be, what if it does scale through? What if that is what we see happening? What if the telcos decide, you know what, let's bite the bullet and accept this? What happens long term when we still cannot, enjoy, if you like, seamless connectivity? As I mentioned earlier, and I'm going to reiterate, the fact that we're speaking with you now is because of connectivity, and thankfully it's in order, it's seamless. So what if they come out and say, you know what, we wanted a particular thing, but we didn't get it, or a particular figure, and we didn't get it because of the intervention of this, that, and the other. Now, we have only managed to paper over the cracks with what we were able to make from the 10% increase or increment, as the case may be. So whatever you see, take it as it is. We're already suffering that with the increment of electricity tariffs, as it were. For the Band A users, they're not even enjoying 20 hours of electricity, to the best of my knowledge, because I'm a Band A user. So, put all of that in perspective. Would they, at that point in time, be justified to make that claim, considering the fact that what they're talking about, as my colleague and I earlier said, is to upgrade current infrastructure as it is, constituted, or as we know it to be?
Thank you very much, sir.
To upgrade their system, they need funds. Agreed. Start with 10%. There are these other options to raise funds. Start with 10%. Then, I've told you earlier, in a 3 months period, the industry will not collapse. The 10% will start February 1, according to the NCC, or the Honorable Minister of Communications and Digital Economy. So, he said it will start February. So, by next week, or in fact, I think Saturday,
some connection.
To be February 1, 10%. Hello? Sorry?
Mr. Ogunbanjo, you can go ahead, please. Okay, we seem to have him disconnected, or because I think he was having network challenge. That's what we're talking about.
I was going to ask Ogunbanjo, really, he talks about nobody is looking at their book to see whether they're making profit. I wanted just to find out from him if they have a different data set that suggests that the pricing at the moment is still profitable for NCC, because it's not just about going to the market to raise funds and put in a venture that will be sinking. It's about that I am investing in telco, for example, and they float a public offer today and said, oh, I want to buy a stock from here, I want to buy stock from here, and 10 years down the line, there's no dividend coming, and they are coming back to the market like a certain operator is doing now, raising paper fund on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, to be able to sustain operation. So which is far better for us? Is it that we pay more and get service, or we allow this sector to die, like Nigeria has done, and then we say, oh, well, we are advocating for the masses. So I think it's really neither here nor there, and I think we need to sit and see what cost is coming into for telco. Federal government has said minimum wage is 70,000 naira per worker, and I think telcos are not included. So for every security man that is manning their generator on the mask would need to be paid. And of course, the staffs in the office are also having so much to take away from this money to provide the services to Nigeria. And I think for the interest of the country itself, we must have to do proper pricing so that companies are not folding up or leaving Nigeria, and then our youths remaining jobless.
One question that I would have asked Mr. Ogunbanjo if poor network had not interrupted the conversation. You know, this is, like Dr. you said, these are the issues. We're talking about network here, and we're seeing the effect of poor network. Would NATCOMS be willing to renegotiate? So if telcos say, we can't do 10%, but maybe we can come down to 40%, would they be willing to accept? Now, if you talk about the subscribers, what they will have to pay more, I'll say that subscribers also have businesses for which they have implemented price increase. So if they had done that, what is good for the goose, we say is good for the gander. So should we expect that an industry that had its last tariff review in 2013 not be able to do same 12 years after, when the price of goods and services that they rely on for their own productivity has changed? I think it will not be fair. And then I want to say that maybe what we should be concentrating more is how to ensure that there is increase in infrastructure investment and service delivery. NCC said the key driver for that approval was to close the infrastructure gap. So perhaps the efforts should be channeled to holding the telcos accountable to ensure that there is improvement, and this improvement is seen in better services, because businesses would suffer when there is poor services. It might just be penny wise, pound foolish at the end of the day.
And here we are seeing a practical manifestation of what we're talking about, with the connection going off on Mr. Adeolu, whom we were speaking with. But, you know, these are the problems. We have a connectivity, we still have a connectivity deficit in terms of, you know, total coverage, because there is from last year, there was a couple of percentage, upward notch from 41%, I reckon, to about 84%, beg your pardon. And so what they're looking to do by way of, what they want to carry out with regards to upgrade and all of that is to bump us up to 98%. And now that 98%, we're going to be talking about a much wider area where more commercial activities go on, talking about the urban settlements, as it were. But if you look at the other end of the spectrum, the outbacks, or if you want to call them the rural settlements, they have less people in that bracket. There's about 48% population in the bracket. So there needs to be more, stretch. There needs to be more reach to cover the hinterlands and all of that. And you have technology, or you have telecommunications, as you mentioned, and rightly so, powering a lot of what we do, whether it is in the service sector, whether it's anywhere at all. And for all of that to happen, these companies, or these telcos, need to make sure that they can actually keep the lights on. In fact, I don't think any business person likes to run on a loss. So it's important that both the NATCOMS, the NLC, and even Nigerians generally realize that this is actually necessary. It's not convenient, but it's something we have to do.
Well, while the NCC has approved a 50% tariff hike for telcos, the protest or those who are asking for a reversal of that decision is an emerging development. So as there are updates to that, to bring it to you. We thank our virtual guest on the show today, Mr. Adeolu Ogunbanjo, who is the National President, National Association of Telecom Subscribers, NATCOMS, for your time and contributions on the show today. Call it a wrap here today. Tomorrow will be another time for you to join us on the front banners. I am Blessing Eichie, and from David.
Thank you very much for watching today's edition of the program. We'll be here as always tomorrow to continue conversations that affect you and, well, us here.
Doc?
Idahosa Osamhanze here. Looking forward to seeing you again tomorrow as we put the issues as they burn on the table.
There are more programs that you would enjoy on Sook News TV, so we ask that you stay.